have just crossed the halfway mark of the UFL season, and with that, a lot of teams are starting to make this final push towards the playoffs, and this is a big week for that, week 6 of the UFL season. Before I dive right into it, I want to quickly say if you're new, subscribe, would be greatly appreciated. Leave a like and comment down below your thoughts for this week of the UFL, and now let's jump right into it. We start Friday at 8 p.m. EST as the Arlington Renegades make the trip to the Dome at America's Center to play the St. Louis Battlehawks, a rematch of Week 4 when Manny Wilkins went down early on in that game in what was a complete dominant showing for the Renegades. The Renegades are going to be looking to bounce back after a tough loss to DC the week prior, in a game that Luis Perez played pretty well and the entire offense was able to show up massively like they needed to, but the defense kind of took a step back. Well, the first time these two teams played, the offense really showed up and the defense really showed up as well. But since then, St. Louis has kind of found their groove again. Hakeem Butler came back last week and had a great showing to cap off that win. Two catches, 120 plus yards and 2 touchdowns. Great showing for him in his first game back since week 1. And Max Duggan is starting to find his groove. Yes, it was only 9 for 12 passing, but it's all he really needed to do. And it's all this St. Louis offense is really going to be asking from him when it's clicking on all cylinders like we know it can. This is going to be a great game from the Dome, again, one of the best home field environments in the UFL. Though that game against DC in Week 3 was definitely one that shook things up. But nonetheless, I do really like what St. Louis has, and I feel like St. Louis is in a good spot to really try and retake control of their spot in the XFL Conference. I do have the Battlehawks winning this game. This is nothing against Arlington. They've been playing fantastically this season. But where we saw last week with the way their defense played does lead me to question some things. And with Max Duggan now having that full week of play under his belt, he's finding his rhythm and he's gaining his confidence. I really like what we've seen, so I do have the Battlehawks winning. Saturday at noon EST, it is the Memphis Showboats making the trip over to Houston to play the Roughnecks in a game that all of a sudden has a lot of stakes into it. Houston find themselves back a game back of second place of the USFL Conference after winning 2 of their last 3, including the first meeting between these two teams. Jalen McLennan has been playing really well since entering that game against Memphis a few weeks prior, and this offense as a whole has been playing a little bit better. Kurt Merritt and Jaquandre White are a good running back duo. We saw that last week against San Antonio, and we saw this Houston defense take a massive step forward in that game against San Antonio as well. Meanwhile, in Memphis, dressed to win seemingly is the guy. It was his first start last week. We'll see what he can do this week in his second start. But all around, this Memphis offense is finding some new light in it with Dress to Win behind center. The defense also played pretty darn well against Birmingham last week. A great first half and a good third quarter. Fourth quarter, definitely some things to be desired, but then they really shut the door down in overtime. So this is going to be a great game being played in Houston. I am going to pick Houston to win and continue their hot hand. I just think that they have the hotter hand, being able to be at a hot state more consistent the past few weeks. Really, this was Memphis getting hot, and I just don't think they're going to be hot for much longer, just because they're going against the other hot hand in the USFL. And Houston has a lot more to play for than Memphis does at this point. But yeah, I do have Houston winning in what should be a really, really darn good game. Sunday at noon EST, the DC Defenders make the trip to play the Michigan Panthers. And this is going to be a really, really damn good game this week. DC coming off of a great comfort behind win against Arlington last week. Jordan Tiamu threw for over 300 yards, and the defense made some great adjustments at halftime to be able to completely shut down Arlington in the second half. That first half performance was definitely one that was a burn the tape type of performance, but then the second half came around and they really stepped up and played well and got a much needed win to sit on top of the XFL Conference. Michigan had a very, very tough loss to St. Louis last week in a game that if Bryce Perkins was the full-time starter, they probably would have won. And because of that, Mike Nolan has finally changed his ways, and he has announced that Bryce Perkins will be the full-time starter for this game. So in a bounce-back type of game, Michigan looking to see what they can do against DC and their really high-powered defense. This is going to be a great game, a battle of the minds between these two teams in Blake Williams and Mike Nolan going at it as defensive coordinator and offensive coordinators, and offensive play caller and head coach respectively. I do, weirdly enough, have the Panthers winning this game. Bryce Perkins has been playing nearly perfect the past few weeks. Again, playing really, really well, and Michigan is feeling like a different team than what they were last year. Toa Tawa has come out of pretty much nowhere and become the lead back for this team, running the ball really, really well. This is a very tough defense they're going against, but Michigan has the weapons to be able to combat it the same way that Arlington was able to do in the first half. The question is just, can they get a full 60 out of the team? And with Bryce Perkins behind center, I fully believe they'll be able to, so give me the Panthers. And to wrap up Week 6 at 4 p.m. EST on Sunday, the San Antonio Brahmas make the trip to the Birmingham Stallions. Both teams are looking to bounce back after very, very different losses the week prior. San Antonio in their home opener got their asses handed to them against Houston in a game where the offense was able to do basically nothing the entire game. And the defense tried their best, but when the offense is consistently going 3 and out, the defense can only do so much. Peyton Party, the interim head coach, has seemingly announced that the plan is going to be a 2 QB system next week for San Antonio between Kellen Mond and Jared Guarantano. And I'm typically not a massive fan of 2 QB systems, but I am not opposed at this stage of the season because they need to figure out which one of these two is the guy potentially for next season. So to go into QB at this point, I get it. Still not a big fan, but I get it. Birmingham last week in their first home loss in a long while. Very tough loss against Memphis, an overtime loss that they really should have won if a few things kind of went their way. The first half was not a good showing, but Case Cookus eventually got snaps underneath him and was able to play really, really well in that second half and lead that comeback. And then overtime happened, but overtime in the UFL is a different beast entirely. So I do have the Stallions winning this game and being able to bounce back. They are still one of the top teams in the UFL, even with that loss against Memphis last week. And again, now that Case Cookus has gotten some snaps underneath him with his offense, he has gotten a full game. He's comfortable in the system now. I do still trust him to be able to lead this offense just fine. And the defense still played well against Memphis the week prior. Again, one of Memphis' touchdowns was a kick six to end the first half. Memphis' offense was not doing a whole lot against Birmingham. So I do have the Stallions winning this game just fine. Alright, so there you have it. My predictions for Week 6 of the UFL season. Again, I appreciate you all for tuning in and staying until the end. You can subscribe and leave a like. You know the whole drill at this point. I said it at the beginning. But I'll see you all next time. Have yourselves a damn good one. Peace.